let's say first, this ain't sports. This conversation we having is not about sports. We've gone past sports. This is more of a business conversation than it is anything. You talking about
Yes.
like almost like you're avoiding a takeover.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and with me today is my tag team partner, the stunning Steve Austin, to my Larry Zabisco in the Dangerous Alliance in the early 1990s, the icon, the showstopper, the main event, and the reason why we are here, Coach Mike Francis. And Coach, how are you on this Throwdown Thursday edition of the Odd Coaches Podcast?
I'm good, but stunning Steve Austin, but you crazy, man.
Yeah, man, with the black and red robe and Lady Blossom and all of that. So on
Next thing
today's
you
episode,
be
go ahead.
ravishing Rick Rude.
Ravishing
Who's
Rick
next?
Rude was in the Dangerous Alliance. Medusa, the Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton, Paulie Dangerously.
Paulie
Uh,
dangerously.
yes, indeed, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Luger had just left to be, I think, like the narcissist or something stupid like that,
Mm-hmm.
and the World Bodybuilding Federation. So Sting was the champ and Rude was coming in. So anyway, but on today's episode, we're going to do 3 segments on the business of college sports. This is a special edition, and all of this kind of piqued my interest because my area of expertise, fans, is student athlete motivation, organizational leadership, and organizational development. We have a lot of upcoming projects that, quite frankly, I can't wait to work for in the summer. I'm looking forward to school being out too. I'm writing my second book, leadership book, and definitely will be seeking my partner's insight. We're doing updated and expanded organizational research on student athlete motivation. We have several new Find the Balance Friday episodes coming out. Tom Dickman, Maryland High School Hall of Famer, former Hood College coach and AD. That episode was just released last week. Dr. Susan Kolb, AD at Hood College, sat down with us, as well as Mr. Thomas Anderson, superintendent in the New England region, and one of my former students who I was luckily enough to serve as a content expert for, Dr. Sarah Cox, who does a lot of work with the Tombstone Unified District in Arizona. So when I heard that NCAA President Charlie Baker wanted to do a state of business review, I jumped all on it. So, folks, let's get started. The NCAA has begun a state of business review, taking a top to bottom analysis of the entire association. The association has hired Boston-based Bain and Company, a top 10 global management consulting firm, to handle the review. This evaluation comes at a time when the NCAA's future role in college athletics is under review. The NCAA has failed to get its arms around name, image, and likeness and continues to fight lawsuits. So, Mike, I sent this to you. What are your thoughts on the NCAA paying for this top to bottom analysis of the entire organization?
It's, it's a business investment. Like we have to look at the previous model, how they function, what made them successful, and now they have to review and see where they're going to go and try to project how they can kind of rein some things in, maybe.
that's a that's a good way to put it. So Val Ackerman, who is the Big East commissioner, believes the NCAA as a whole is sometimes inefficient and undervalued, and they fail to capitalize on the value that they have. She said, and I quote, "There isn't a clearly defined commercial unit within the national office, and in my opinion, it's failing." The NCAA is $1 billion concern because the money they bring in for March Madness, I think we would all benefit from a clearly defined structure, a business unit that would be run by a chief marketing officer and a chief commercial officer. Acumen's credentials are phenomenal. She's a former college basketball player, the first president of the WNBA, and is in her 10th year as Big East commissioner. So the Big East has experienced great growth with basketball, and she again comes from that background. What do you think about her ideas of the NCAA having those specific roles in terms of marketing?
I think that, yeah, marketing is the biggest thing they're gonna need help with. Val Ackerman can bring it. I mean,
She
is
not
he gonna
necessarily
change it?
said for her, she
But
said the corporate office should have these positions filled.
true, but like these are let's let's say first, this ain't sports. This conversation we having is not about sports. We've gone past sports. This is more of a business conversation than it is anything. You talking about
Yes.
like almost like you're avoiding a takeover, almost like you're trying to re-rally the troops and try to get everybody involved into the way that it's opposite of the way it's heading. It's heading more
Yes.
control of the student athletes. Because what happens is these companies, I'm sure, well, we know that the NIL deals, they can't make the deals with people who already got deals with the institution, correct?
So the
That's
institution's not
part of
supposed to be
NIL.
involved in
Right,
those deals. They're
right.
supposed to be separate entities.
Yeah, and the funds that you get can't be what they're saying is these deals that these guys have, and this is what I think the major issue is. You can't have NIL deals with major corporations that's already donating to the school, from what I understand. That's why it's an issue to go out and find companies willing to put money into this.
Interesting. So let's talk
Because
about, yeah, go ahead.
then it takes money from the bottom line. Like if I signed up for a $30 million deal with your athletic department, but or I can just take 5 of your best athletes and give each one of them $2 million
Mhm.
as an NIL deal over a 4-year span, I just saved me $25 million.
And since you brought that piece up, schools across the country are having to make these decisions. Do
Mm-hmm.
I upgrade facilities
Mm-hmm.
to entice people to come,
Yes,
or
sir.
do I ask my donors to donate to NIL?
Mm.
But we don't have the revenue to do both. I can't upgrade facilities and get the lazy rivers and the locker rooms and this, that, the other.
You and
But
them
I also
lazy
don't have
rivers,
the
you
money.
hate those lazy.
but
You hate lazy rivers, don't
I also don't have the money to, have those donors pick. So let's talk about the value of sponsorship. The value of sponsorship's in question because all of it provides the foundation of the NCAA's $1 billion budget, approximately 90% of which comes from the men's basketball tournament.
you? Hello.
One Power Five administrator perked up when Val Ackerman's comments were mentioned. Quote, there are so many different things the NCAA should be thinking about revenue wise. I could tell you 10 things they should be doing. They should sell the naming rights to March Madness. What do you think that would be worth? It's an enormous number of what it could be. And in the name of naming rights and the age of naming rights, the Rose Bowl's been monetized. The
Mm-hmm.
different bowl games are called the whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
remember, the NCAA doesn't get that money. So Val Ackerman, again, very experienced, made some recommendations. I'd like to have you comment on any of the recommendations that I'm going to mention to you. A commercial unit that would vet and maximize the value of sponsorship deals. Good idea or bad idea, Mike?
Good idea.
Okay. A potential partnership with players regarding NIL.
Bad idea.
Okay. A
Because then you
person,
can
go
start
ahead.
taking back from you start taking back from the athlete, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Well, if I'm
Mm,
an athlete, I don't want to get. It's hard for me to get in business with somebody who didn't want me to have business. It's hard
mm,
for me to share my money with somebody who's been making so much money off people like me to begin with. Like
mhm.
I'm going backwards now because what happens is you slowly and surely you start reducing the amount of money um that they get. You know,
All right. A person or persons dedicated solely to women's sports.
but isn't that against Title IX?
No, because most colleges have senior women administrators. Even as an athletic director, I had a senior women's administrator who advocated for our girls' teams.
Then why can't
Um,
she just be an assistant athletic director?
well, this is for the national organization. This is for the NCAA.
I don't like
Um,
it. I don't
Okay.
like it. I think we do a lot for uh, inclusion,
Hmm.
and now to say, okay, we need somebody to just monitor the women's. Like, I understand the difference between equity and equal and inclusion. Like, there's a difference in all three, and that just
Hmm.
rubs me kind of. I don't know. I don't like that fact. Maybe a committee, but I wouldn't put one person in charge of trying to do everything for women, because then you actually put women's sport. So who's in charge of the men's? Let me ask you that question.
Seems like no one. That's why we're doing a top to bottom review.
So if there's no one doing it for the men, why should somebody do it for the women? If we're talking about equality and stuff like that, that's all I'm saying. Like, let's be across the board.
All right. Another suggestion was to streamline FBS football.
As
Uh, man, that's a big entity, and we need to streamline it. There'll be some other information in this segment about it. And then for
yes.
college football only, further divide the football bowl subdivision, the football championship. So when we talk about streamlining FBS football and college football only, we have the football bowl subdivision fans, and those are the schools you heard about with all of the bowls that Mike and I make fun of all December and January. Then you have the football championship subdivision, which already had a playoff, and they already have a system that works with Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, and then you have the institutions that don't play football. So she made the suggestion of streamlining that. I remember Charlie Baker's background, fans. He's the former two-term governor of the state of Massachusetts and also the former CEO of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. So this is not somebody coming in with an academic background who's gone up the ranks. This is somebody who's coming from a political background. And the first thing that he wants to do is that top to bottom review. So we
Mhm.
always talk about following the money. The NCAA spends $65 million a year on a sport which doesn't sponsor a championship. And the Knight Commission, who I have seen work and they do outstanding job, proposed in 2020 a new governing body for FBS schools to separate them from the rest of the sports because you've got schools trying to compete with the SEC, with the Big Ten, with $80 million coming in every year to their
Mhm.
team, and you want North Dakota State, playing under the same rules as that. Okay, the 69 Power Five schools that in 2013 will leave the FBS have weighted voting privileges. In fact, those voting privileges, they're called the Autonomy Five, and they're written into the NCAA Constitution. So right there, we have a problem. But the last piece I want to mention to you, Mike, before we move on is Val Ackerman expertly said every time there's a lawsuit about football, the NCAA gets sued and all 350 schools get sued because these lawsuits are about them. When the NCAA gets sued, we're all sharing the same risk and legal liability. These football guys want it both ways. They want to stay under the NCAA tent, but when litigation comes in, that's
They
what they
running.
want.
They
So
running.
when we talk about money, you don't want to talk about nothing. But as soon as you get sued, we're part of a public nonprofit, blah, blah, blah. Um,
We
you
ain't got
all
no money.
you also have the NCAA women's tournament, which we both, acknowledge did extremely well,
This
but
year.
are handcuffed because they're under a previous contract and they can't uncap their worth. So it's all a bunch of missed opportunities that will not be solved in this segment, but I'm glad we're having the conversation. So I'm looking forward to hearing the results, the top to bottom review, and see if they take any of these recommendations because the system that we have right now is just not working. And it's not going to work moving forward in the future because look at who people are hiring to make the decisions. So we have gone far away from simply go to class on time, ready to work, do best. We're talking about a lot of different stuff. And in segment 2, we'll talk about the transition for Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. We'll talk about Colorado's AD defending Dion, and in segment 3, we'll just give you some quick examples about how all of this is working. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches podcast.
Why should student athletes use the CKA SAVE Project academic and athletic consulting services? Over the past 15 to 20 years, colleges, universities, professional sports teams, business organizations, and others have increased their use of consulting services to improve their decision-making processes and results. Over the same time, the athletic and academic landscape has changed for high school and college student athletes as the NCAA has raised initial academic eligibility requirements for student athletes while decreasing the number of transfer restrictions. Former college student athletes have noted that they were academic and athletically unprepared for the rigors of college. Let the CKA SAVE Project's close to 30 years of academic and athletic experience help guide student athletes to increase success as we work to help student athletes achieve the goal of obtaining a college degree. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches podcast in segment 2 of this special edition as we talk about the business of college sports. We're going to talk about Oklahoma and Texas' final steps to go into the SEC. The Oklahoma Board of Regents last week approved the necessary contract agreements with both conferences to make the switch. The schools will join the new leagues July 1st, 2024. Oklahoma and Texas will play one season in a 14-team Big 12 that will include new members BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston. This is crazy, but that's how they're going to finish this off. This decision was made because realignment in other leagues played a role with the agreement with the Big 12. So, Mike, it will happen. This is the last year. What do you think about the expanded Big 12 for one season?
I like it. Yeah, it's only 1 year, but it's still it's going to be a chance for them to generate more revenue, that's for sure. I mean, if you got 14 teams, you got more, 6 more sellouts? 12 if you, I mean,
Yeah.
6 home games will be sellouts for every school. So 2 teams, you got 12 more sellouts. Everybody's paying league dues, and you're able to market your league, even though they're leaving.
And they're paying the buyout on the way out to leave early.
Buyout, yes, sir.
They're paying the buyout to leave early. So, I believe that's $50 million for each school. So that's $100 million that Texas and Oklahoma are leaving to the Big 12.
Let's go.
And speaking of that, Colorado, who is currently in the Pac-12, $50 million, $100 million could pay some exit fees. Colorado's got a lot of heat that, quite frankly, I think both of us think are just ridiculously crazy. The athletic director has publicly stated his confidence in Deion Sanders rebuilding the roster. Quote, "I have confidence in him and his staff, and they know what they're doing." He said that at the Pac-12 meetings. He's been very honest. He's been very forthright. He's been very open and very public about what he's trying to do. He's trying to build a winner at Colorado, and this is the way to do it. Sanders has not hid that he was not going to keep all these folks. And Colorado, by far, has had the most players into the portal. According to a school spokesperson at Colorado, there are 4 players who decided to stay at Colorado on scholarship but aren't with the team. Bravo to you. The university will pay for their education, and this goes to the specific NCAA rule that said we will provide aid to student athletes who are no longer with the team as a new coach comes in. Mike, any thoughts about Colorado's AD stepping up and saying, "Hey, man, we're good with this"?
I think it's good that he stepped up. First of all, this isn't like this. This isn't out of the norm. This happens all the time. It just so happens that it's public that makes it the issue. Coaches do it all the time. That guy who came to Maryland when my son was there did the same thing and found any reason to get rid of guys. He was trying to run guys off. Anybody from the previous staff. That's what coaches do. Coaches clean house. It just so happened Deion has a camera with him everywhere he goes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that anywhere else. Shit, before that, we had where you couldn't transfer, and then they could restrict where you transfer. Like we're
Yes.
making advancements, but we're complaining about the wrong things. Like people just they were 1-11. Let's get to the bottom of this. I've had high school teams bigger than that. I had high school football players bigger. I'm watching them. I'm like, is this like freshmen only? Like they were 1-11,
Is
dude. It's a
this
reason they were 1-11.
So I want to get your thoughts on Todd Berry, the executive director of the American Football Coaches Association, and what he said. He said the buzz from coaches about what's happening at Colorado is the whole intent was never for anybody to change over roster. That's what this guy said. Berry said he wasn't familiar with the specifics of what was going on in Colorado other than what he's read, but said the first year head coach rules allow for more attrition, but not one to basically say, you got to go, you got to go, you got to go. In other words, the spirit of the rule has not been followed.
Where was he at?
Any thoughts on that from you?
How long Todd Berry been in office?
I have no idea,
Was
but
he
that,
in office when that guy did this in Maryland?
yeah,
Don't come crying now. Don't do that.
exactly.
That's what coaches do. So stop it. Stop it.
Yes. All right, fans, in segment 3, we're
Hell
going to
with
talk
Todd
about
Berry.
some we're going to talk about some quick hitters and how all of what we just talked about is theory into practice on the iCoaches podcast.
The CKA SAVE project is an industry leader in advocating for student-athlete academic and athletic needs. Through academic and athletic enrichment, the CKA SAVE project is on the forefront of the issues facing 21st century student-athletes. As student-athletes continue to struggle to find a better balance between academic and athletic success, the CKA SAVE project offers academic and athletic services to support student-athlete academic success, including academic skills assessment, academic and athletic consulting, academic monitoring, academic and athletic workshops. For more information or to schedule a free consultation, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back, fans, to segment 3. And on this special Throwdown Thursday edition, as we talk about the business of college sports, let's actually talk about some new things going on with the new staffs. And all of this should hopefully make some sense. So Georgia Tech hired Damon Stoudemire, Mighty Mouse himself, as the head coach. And last week he announced his staff, which also includes former George Washington coach Carl Hobbs as his top assistant. Carl Hobbs was coach at George Washington for over a decade, had 3 NCAA tournament appearances. He was also the associate coach at Rutgers. Stoudemire also announced the hiring of Terry Parker Jr. and Pershing Williams. Parker is a native of Decatur, joins Decatur, Georgia, joins the Georgia Tech staff after spending 3 years at UAB. Williams is a former Yellow Jackets graduate assistant who comes to the Atlanta school from Kennesaw State, who had a great run. Mike, Georgia Tech has only had 1 NCAA tournament appearance the last 13 years. What do you think about how Damon is building his staff?
I'm glad to see him putting it together. He's put his time in. He's more than deserving of getting that opportunity. I also see that the benefits of having Carl Hobbs.
Yes.
This is a guy who's been around in multiple conferences. He's been around long enough to get it done. He understands what it takes. He understands what it takes to build a successful program.
And I like that he has the old head and Carl Hobbs sitting next to him, kind of guiding him, who's been in multiple, as you said, multiple conferences, who knows the recruiting landscape. And he also has the young runners, the young guys, and get out, get your players, relate to them, listen to the hippity hop, so to speak.
He said, listen to the hippity hop.
All right, man, you know my musical taste. Very dated, very dated. So
Not
the
too many
NCAA
dudes listen to Boney James playing basketball. Teenager, just saying.
So now I want to talk a little bit about the air quote poaching. So according to Jeff Goodman, noted author, researcher, college sports pundit, there were 23 players who earned Player of the Year honors in one bid league. Out of those 23 players, 10 transferred. 9 of them exhausted their eligibility, and 4 will return to their schools. Mike, any thoughts about the air quote poaching? Or has this been overdone and overblown? What do you think?
I think it's been overblown. I think it's been overblown. But poaching, this ain't the first time it happened. Let's not even think that it hasn't happened before.
Mhm.
So, well, who's returning where is good. I think students, they should have a choice. Why shouldn't they have a choice to do so?
Yeah, exactly. There should be no issue if you have overplayed your hand as a player, just like coaches who overplay their hands.
Yes, and that's the
And
point. That's what I
the,
need.
the kid at FDU, the coach there, got a gig and
Mhm.
took the gig. You're supposed to take the gig. Nobody's mad that you taking the gig, so players should have that same right.
Right.
So now let's get to LSU women's basketball trying to repeat as champions. DePaul transfer Anissa Morrow, who established herself as one of the nation's premier offensive talents and rebounders. She's going to LSU too. She was looking at USC, looking at South Carolina, but hey, man, she is going to LSU. And say what you want, and I have. They are building something down there
It's the
with a
Shaq.
quickness.
It's the
So
Shaq
with
money.
Morrow, Angel Reese, LSU now has the only 2 players in the country from last season who are in the top 5 in scoring, in the top 10 in rebounding. And don't forget, Haley Van Lith is going there as well. So, recruiting 101. Let me tell you a little bit about how this came down. No detail was left untouched. Her hotel room was outlined with fake $24 bills referencing her jersey number. It was all over TikTok. Just in case anybody forgot, LSU won the national championship, so they had that going on. They had poster with her, Reese, SEC Freshman of the Year, Floje Johnson, Van Leith is coming in, and they also have incoming freshman Michaela Williams. It is crazy down on the bayou. Look for LSU women to be in the mix, sir. So, any thoughts about women's basketball now having the same kind of level of energy, passion, and doing the thing, getting the players? That's what you
Yeah,
do.
we're hearing about it in the off season, which is what makes it so good. Like this wouldn't have been a story 2 or 3 years ago. We wouldn't be talking about women transferring. We wouldn't be talking about women's basketball in general after the national championship game until the WNBA. But here comes the WNBA is looking at us, the season to start, and we're still talking about college women's basketball now. We
Mhm.
have personalities, we have people, we have between, of course, Angel Reese, of course, but then Van Lith, everybody knows who she is. Flage, everybody knows who she is. Morrow, everybody knows who she is. Kim Mulkey is larger than life.
Yeah.
Dawn Staley is larger than life. Like you got to understand those personalities and those people are pushing the game forward.
And Gino will be back next year because Paige will be back and AZ will be back. So there's teams in the east, in the north, in the south, and in the west. So that's always
Two
good for
team in the South.
basketball.
SEC got it on lock.
SEC got it on lock, and Big Ten women. The only teams we're worried about is the ACC because everybody leaving. Everybody leaving.
Everybody leaving the ACC.
Did I offend?
Jefferson Pilot, baby. Keep telling you, Jefferson
All
Pilot
right.
Productions.
Academic progress rate, because eventually we have to talk academics because we're college students.
All
right.
I forgot about that part.
The overall score of NCAA Division I athletes held steady at 984 in terms of the academic progress rate, despite a slight decrease in the 3 most visible sports. Athletes in football and men's basketball each saw their number drop by 2 points, falling to 962 and 967 respectively, while women's basketball saw a 1 point drop to 982. So you see women still getting it done because 984 is generally speaking with every other sport. Scores are based on scholarship athletes earning 1 point each semester that they are academically eligible, and another point each semester they remain in their school or earn their diploma. Teams that consistently fall below the cut line of 930 are normally subject to penalties, but the NCAA will again impose penalties starting in 2024, 2025, the year after all of the COVID-19 suspensions end. And unlike the calculations for the federal government, athletes in good academic standing still earn points that they transfer to another school. Individual teams can be found on the NCAA website. So if you really want to take a deep dive, feel free to do so. And finally, congrats to Bronny James for signing with USC. Feel free to debate the basketball, talent, whatever. All of that's fair. Have at it. I want to salute him for being the first member of his immediate family to attend college. So whether you spend 1 day, 1 year, 4 years, whatever, the experience of college life is rewarding. And I just wish this young man well, because you're in a spotlight your entire life and no scandals, no anything, nothing. So go live. What was the scandal? What was the scandal with LeBron? Leaving Cleveland? Is that the biggest crime? So again, young man's going to college again. We'll have plenty of time to debate.
Suns had more of a scandal than he had, so that's that's what I'm talking about.
Then you got more than me. Yeah. So, Mike, any thoughts on Bronny signing at USC?
It's a good move for him. Again, I'm glad he went to college. Dad, it wasn't in the cards for Dad. I think he needs a couple years of seasoning. 2-3 years of seasoning before he's ready for the NBA.
Might be one and done.
Could be, and that might be the only place that he could. But if you think UCLA, I mean USC is the premier institution in that state, right?
Yeah, and they'll be in the Big Ten that year too.
Yeah, so being in the Big Ten, that's their home. Like it's like LeBron's backyard, the Ohio Midwest kind of thing. Like I think it all fits in and ties to the family, but so he can have the best of both situations, as far as the Midwest conference, a conference in Mid-America, but then also being in LA in the limelight, which is what he's used to, being close to home with mom, so she can go to games. I think that's very important for the family too, because if LeBron is still playing, they're in LA, USC. It's a good move.
All right. So on behalf of my tag team partner, Coach Mike Francis, I am Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the iCoaches podcast. And we will see you on the sidelines. Till next time, take care.
The iCoaches podcast is sponsored by the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project is an industry leader in providing student-athlete academic and athletic support. From assessing student-athletes' academic and athletic skills, to measuring and monitoring student-athlete academic progress, to improving student-athlete time management and organizational skills, the CKA Save Project provides wraparound services for student-athletes from middle school through college. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by emailing cka@ckasaveproject.org. We hope you enjoyed today's show. The iCoaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the iCoaches podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the iCoaches podcast on Twitter and Instagram at iCoaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach FRANCHIZE. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the iCoaches podcast.